This is America, people. Don't forget that. I know that we are better than this.
We are better than this. I am Information Man. First thing that I need to say right now to everybody out there listening, wherever you are in the world, day, night, or morning, I want to give a prayer and let the people of Parkland, Florida know that my heart goes out to them. My prayers are with them. It's never acceptable for young people, for the kids in our society to have to go to school and go to school under unsafe conditions. One of the things that I want to break down right now is that it was reported that Donald Trump made the statements that he sort of blamed it in a sort of indirect way on the people in Florida, in Parkland, Florida. He basically never wanted to talk about guns. He wants to stay clear away from guns because he wants to talk about
mental health is your problem here. This was a very, based on preliminary reports, very deranged individual. A lot of problems over a long period of time. We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries. But this isn't a guns situation. I mean, we could go into it, but it's a little bit soon to go into it. But fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction. Otherwise, it would have been as bad as it was. It would have been much worse. But this is a mental health problem at the highest level.
Now, that's a statement that Donald Trump once stated before when we had the shooting, the heinous shooting in Las Vegas, where you had something around 58 people who were killed in that massacre, okay? And it's also reported that in Parkland, Florida, or in Florida as a state, this is the worst mass shooting in Florida's history as a state. But once again, Donald Trump as president, he fails to really talk to the issues. He fails to really connect with the people. He's so focused on staying away from the issues of guns that he now wants to break it down into mental illness, okay? Whatever it may be, it's unacceptable. Now, we would not be here in this moment right now, okay, with Parkland, Florida, had something had been done effectively during the Sandy Hook situation when President Obama was very upset about what had happened there, and he put in provisions to keep people with mental illnesses from getting their hands on the guns. Soon as Donald Trump got into office, one of the first things that he did was to get rid of the provision that President Obama had put in, which would make it harder for mentally ill individuals to get their hands on a gun. Now, that's the truth. You can look that up, folks. You can research that. Another factor that we must not be passed on us. Another factor. Donald Trump, along with many of the other politicians, are pretty much in the hands of the NRA. That's right, I said it, the NRA. The NRA has a stranglehold on our politicians. Matter of fact, folks, to tell you the truth, our democracy is not controlled by us. It's controlled by the corporations, who in turn control the politicians. Okay? Because Donald Trump himself, when he ran for president, although he bragged about being a billionaire and not needing to take corporate money, he's actually one of those corporate cronies, because he was supported by the NRA around the tune of 2.5 million, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, he took money from the NRA, which makes me wonder, is that why he won't talk about guns and the rest of the GOP? Because the statistics that I have is that the Republican Party overall, the GOP, they have taken over $20 million in campaign contributions. Okay, all those different little senators and Congress people, they're taking money from the NRA. The NRA has the biggest, they have the biggest lobby in this country as it relates to guns. And every time you talk about gun control, people want to throw in our face this whole thing about it's my First Amendment right to bear arms. Secondly, no one's taking guns from you. If that was true, this kid, Cruz, who did this heinous murder of 17 kids of his peers in Parkland, Florida, where he went to high school, he got his hands on a gun. And this is a young man who had been reported to be playing around with BB guns. The community itself stated that he was a troublemaker. He was a kid who had lost family members. He was taken in by a family, and that he was a very troubled kid. Everyone in the community knew he was troubled. So when Donald, and they were doing everything they could to get the word out about this kid, okay? And then we find out now that the FBI kind of dropped the ball as well on their investigation around this kid, okay? And to make matters pretty much worse, Donald Trump gets up in his speech and he states that this is a problem in the community, and these folks were doing everything that they could to bring attention to what this kid was about, and nothing happened. All balls were dropped in those who are in power in this state. So where we find ourselves at again, just like Sandy Hook, Columbine, we haven't learned anything in this country we should have learned from the Columbine situation, the Sandy Hook circumstance, the Post, the nightclub, and once again in Florida that got shot up and people were killed, the situation that happened in Las Vegas. And my statistics, if you go look it up, this is about the 18th school shooting, I believe, this year. And there's been about 233 overall school shootings. It's a serious problem that we have in American society, and I argue that this is because in America, we are obsessed with our guns. We are obsessed with gun culture. It's in our movies, it's in our television programs, our commercials. Violence is synonymous with American society, okay? It's synonymous. And statistically, some of the individuals who do this killing are either mentally ill or they may not be mentally ill. Now, I've worked in mental health as a therapist for about over 16 years. And I found out some interesting information from a psychologist that I work with. And she stated to me that overall, statistically, in our country, most of the people who tend to commit these crimes are not technically what you would call mentally ill. In some cases, I'm not saying in all, in some cases, okay? A lot of times these individuals are what we call in mental health or in psychology, they're called psychopaths. Now this kid Cruz, it was reported that he was shooting animals, that there were cats in the neighborhood that were missing because he might have been killing the cats. That is a telltale sign when a young kid, a young man is growing up. Whenever they're doing destructive things like torturing animals, killing cats, those are signs that that individual may have some psychopath traits or might be a psychopath. Now, Dr. Hare, he's a psychologist from Canada. And it's very politically incorrect in our country to diagnose kids or young people as psychopaths. But in Canada, they've been doing the studies, and they can read brain waves and matter, and they can pretty much tell through their studies and research if a person has a potential to be a psychopath when they grow up or if they are. That psychopath trait doesn't start when you're like 30, 40. It was already with you as a child. And this young man, Cruz, from what all accounts show, that most of the kids in that school did not like him. They said he was a troublemaker. Now you can say that the kid was lost in the system. Somehow this kid should have gotten help. That's a big question mark. How much help did this kid get? How much help did he did not get? And why did he get lost in the system, if at all, if I'm correct? And that's a big question, because usually if there's telltale signs, it just makes you wonder how this tragedy in Parkland, Florida could have been prevented had this kid had been gotten to a lot sooner. And the FBI, they dropped the ball. There was a report about another young man who had the same name as Cruz, talking about it was his death wish or his desire to be a serial killer in school. And people thought that it was this guy Cruz, but it turned out to be someone else. So the media, they're still trying to figure this all out. And what I'm trying to tell you right now is that the politicians in this country are cowards. They're not willing to do what is right because most of them are in the back pockets of the corporations, particularly the NRA. Okay? And the politicians are like prostitutes. They're like whores. They need that. They're getting that money that the NRA gives them to do what? To keep campaigning, to stay in office. So the politicians are inept to do what is right for us because they're too busy in the pockets of corporations. They're not going to do anything because if they really wanted to do something, this situation would have never happened. And Donald Trump, who talks about mental illness is the problem, Donald Trump, who talks about this is a tragedy, is the same Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, who once he got in office, because he's been obsessed with trying to destroy everything that President Obama put in as far as his executive orders, laws. As soon as he got in office, one of the things that he destroyed was the provision to protect us from individuals getting their hands on a handgun. So I have to say that part, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to be honest here, folks. Part of what you see in this situation, I must put on the blame of the politicians of this country, because that killing could have been prevented had this young man not been able to get a gun. You know, he's not old enough to buy liquor legally, but he damn well can still get his hands on a gun. And matter of fact, you can walk into a Walmart and some places in this country and buy a gun outright. Unfreaking believable, okay? Donald Trump destroyed the provision that President Obama put in office. So I'm going to lay some blame on President Donald Trump. I'm going to lay blame all over that Congress, who has been too innate to do what is the right thing to do. And I'm going to play another audio clip for you because the students down there in Parkland, Florida are saying, Donald Trump, what are you going to do for us, man? We need action. We don't need words. Here it goes.
19 years old, that's been investigated already, and not even a year ago, being able to purchase an AR-15 in Broward County right here.
We're like the latest statistic on, on school violence, and as a society, as Americans, we're failing our children, we're not keeping them safe, and Congress is failing us, and the government is failing us, and something has to be done.
I don't want something like this ever to happen again. I want us to take action, and I don't want this just to be another mass shooting. I want this to be the last mass shooting.
President Trump, if you're watching, we know you watch the news. A lot of these people may not have voted for you, but come here, look them in the face, and tell them that you're going to do something. You ran that you were a different person, you were an elected official, you wanted to make America great again. Come here and tell these people, these families, that you're going to help them.
Like the young man said, you wanted to make America great again, Donald Trump, and he stated, come here and do something. I'm going to tell you why he can't do anything. He's too innate to do anything. Because once again, he is compromised. He's compromised by the politicians. He's compromised by the corporations. The other politicians like him are totally compromised because they're all in the bed with the NRA, which is the strongest lobbying organization. They got the strongest lobby in this country. The politicians are brought and so forth. So I really feel bad for the people of Florida because they're screaming for help. And I'm really sick and tired of listening to politicians and people on television say this is sad. This is a sad day in America. I don't want to hear politicians talking all the political talk. They need to get something done. But the problem is will they do what is best for the American people, or will they simply do what they've already been doing, which is nothing? Which is why we are where we are today in 2018. Other civilized countries like Australia, they don't allow semi-automatic weapons in places like Australia, and they don't have these kind of problems in other places in the world like Europe, where they don't allow guns to run rampant. And I know America, we're hooked on guns. We want our First Amendment right to bear arms to protect ourselves. Hey, I'm not talking about taking away guns from nobody. You have a right to have a gun legally, and if you're a sane person. But why in the hell does anyone need a semi-automatic weapon? or one of these military type weapons, you don't use that to hunt for duck or wild game. That's to really kill people. And for a young man like this to get his hands on a gun like that when he can't even buy beer legally, but he can get a gun legally in Florida, it just shows you how backwards our society is today. And Donald Trump is a complete coward because he could not be as honest as possible and tell those people that he was going to do something. He simply wanted to reflect and kind of blame it on the folks down there, right? And then never mention anything about guns. These politicians are not worth anything, okay? They're not worth a bag of French fries from McDonald's, okay? They're not worth a bag of fries, baby. So I'm not happy about this. And their politicians are in their pockets of these criminalized organizations like the National Rifle Association, okay? Now I'm going to play this clip from my man, Joe Madison of Sirius XM Radio, because he always puts it down. He's going to be in the beginning of this clip, he's going to be talking about John McCain, how much money John McCain gets from these organizations such as the NRA. And he's going to name a list of other politicians. And this is why, in my humble opinion, folks, why you're not getting justice in American society by these cronies up there in Washington, D.C. Here's the clip.
7,740,000 from the NRA. Richard Burr, North Carolina, $6,986 from the NRA. Roy Blunt, $4,451,000 from the NRA. Tom Tillis, North Carolina, $4,418 from the NRA. Corey Gardner, Colorado, $3,879,000 from the NRA. Rubio, $3,303,000 from the NRA. Joni Ernst from Iowa, and she's brand new, $3,124,000 from the NRA. From Rob Portman, $3,061,000 from the NRA. Todd Young from Indiana, $2,896 from the NRA. Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, $2,861,000 from the NRA. French Hill, Arkansas, $1,089,000 from the NRA. Ken Buck from Colorado, poor guy, he's a cheap date, $800,000. David Young, Iowa, another cheap date, $707,000. Mike Simpson from Idaho, he's real cheap, $385,000. From Idaho, Greg Gainfort, Gianforte.
That's the one who attacked the reporter.
Yep. Oh, that's on the reporter.
He's pretty new.
$344,000. From Alaska, Don Young, $245,000. Hold on, I'm not finished. Lloyd Smucker from Pennsylvania, $221,000. Then Maine, Bruce Palinquin, $201,000 NRA. Pete Sessions from Texas. Oh, they don't, $158,000. Barbara Comstock, she's brand new, right over here in Virginia, $137,000 from the NRA. Among the top 100 House recipients, 95 are Republican.
As you heard right there, my man Joe Madison, I love him, from Sirius XM Radio. He puts it down, he states it, 94% of them, the GOP, the Republicans, are in the back pocket, are in the back pocket of the NRA. The NRA has the Republican Party sold up and locked up, baby. And guess what? The Republicans control the House and the Senate. Are they really going to do anything? Are they really going to listen to the cries of the people in Florida? I really doubt not. I really doubt it. You're going to get a little bit of gesture because they got to play the role. They got to act like they really care about what's happening to the people in this society with the shooting. They're going to play that role. They're going to, you know, recognize these folks like they've always done. And then it's going to be back to business as usual. It's just the way our society is. It's really crazy. I don't understand. I do understand this because America, as Donald Trump said, he wants to make it great again. And so far what he has done, folks, and he has made it great for the corporations. But he has not made it great for the average people. And all those folks that voted for him, they're going to, sooner or later, they're going to wake up, smell the coffee if they haven't already, and say, what have I done putting this man in office? So I just want to say, my heart goes out to the people of Parkland, Florida. I'm not going to sit up here and say they're not going to be able to get over this. This kind of stuff impacts you. I work in mental health. This can impact those kids and the adults in this community for years to come. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's a damn shame when we have to talk about putting metal detectors in schools for kids. Kids are not the problems. Adults are the problems, because adults are in charge and they have failed in doing what is necessary to keep kids safe in school. Now, I have a child myself, and now do I have to worry about this? Yes, I do, because we live in this country and anything can happen. Don Lemon, as you heard in the beginning of my video, he stated how many of us are shadowed from this. I mean, we're just a moment away from something, man. We don't know what's happening in the minds of people out there. And I'm going to just keep very clear. It's not always mental illness that make people do this. You got people out there that just damn right nasty, mean, they don't give a damn. They're mad at the world. They think the world owes them something. This kid is a classic case of someone who's a psychopath. And because I've worked in mental health, when you are a psychopath is not a symptom of mental illness. Okay? Because psychopaths usually are very intelligent people. They're very manipulative people. They know how to blend in and blend out. So even if a guy goes around mass shooting, doesn't necessarily mean he's completely mentally ill. He could be a psychopath. Although, I'm going to be fair about this, they did report that he was in some mental facility that he hadn't been in for like a month or more. And the question once again is, how did he fall through the cracks? That is not the responsibility of those kids that go to school there. That's the responsibility of the adults to keep track of what's going on with young people who have trouble like this. It's a shame that someone could not have gotten to this young man earlier. Now, there's also reports that this young man was involved with some paramilitary group, might have been a white supremacist type group, you know, one of those type of groups. There's it hasn't been clearly defined, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, just like Ruth Dillon, who went into the church in South Carolina, and he did that shooting of the 9 black people in that church who were praying. Come to find out, he had involvement with these types of Nazi or racial type groups. These sort of things are very possible, very real in our society. I just feel bad about the people out there. I hope things get better for them. What can I say? This seems to be a symptom, a deep-rooted symptom of American society. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Because there's 3 types of people. There are people who watch stuff happen. There are people who make stuff happen, meaning they do something about it. And there are people who go to sleep, fall asleep, passively, wake up and say, what the hell just happened? The question is, which are you? Which 3 of those people are you? This is the information man. The politicians are criminals, in my mind, when it comes to this issue. And as Joe Madison broke it down on that audio that I just played, the politicians in America have been taking blood money. And that blood money comes from the NRA. No doubt about it. Let's just call it as it is. It's blood money, folks. Wake up. Information man is out. Thank you.